Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. It was midnight, the air was cold and all was silent. People were sleeping in their homes with their children and all was well. However, despite the calm and peaceful setting, there was a deep sense of dread around the air and every shinobi of Konoha was feeling it. It might have been because of the full moon that graced the skies of Konohagakure. It was reminiscent to the moon that appeared during the infamous massacre that took the whole shinobi world by surprise. To those who were superstitious, however, they might have said something along the line that the goddess of the moon herself was protecting them. Oh, how wrong they were. For if there was a god represented by the moon gracing them that night, it would have been without a doubt the Aim no Hitotsu no Kami. A malevolent being who was the death incarnate, a being of pure malice that almost brought about the end of the world if not for the Sage of Six Paths. Like Uchiha Itachi did before him, this new man, no not man, this teen was sitting above a post in the middle of Konoha's ninja district ready for what was about to begin. However, unlike his predecessor, this was not a mission to exterminate a traitorous clan. This was far from it. His up-and-coming actions were the very definition of madness. There was no noble causes. This was pure insanity, rage, and vengeance. The teen slowly stood up. He felt a pair of Anbus doing their nightly rounds approach him. Soon enough, a tall, muscular male Anbu wearing a turtle mask appeared a few feet away from him. While his partner, a very, for lack of a better term, healthy woman with long black hair that reached to her waist wearing a fox Anbu mask appeared beside him. "I'm sorry, but I would have to ask you come with us. You are in the direct violation of the current curfew set by the current Hokage." The man tilted his head to the side as if thinking how to reply. A few seconds passed and he finally opened up with saying, "And why might I ask of you, is there a curfew?" Ms. Fox. Before the fox-masked Anbu could even answer, she found herself cut off by her partner. "That is none of your concern, now come with us." Oh, were the last words of the Anbu known as Turtle as his head was sliced off. His body fell limp on the ground and began gushing out a fountain of blood. The fox-masked Anbu stood there in shock as she stared at her partner's now decapitated body. Before she could even react, she felt an arm over her shoulder, and for once in her long career as Anbu could say, she truly felt fear. Her partner's killer stood there right beside her, and it was disturbing that she didn't even see him kill her partner. Hell, she didn't even sense him until the moment he put his left arm around her shoulder. Before she could complete her sentence, she was cut off again, but this time by the teen who just killed her partner. "Shush, stay quiet, today is such a nice evening, you see, and really you and your partner there," points at the headless corpse, "are really ruining the festivities, don't you see?" The fox Anbu snapped out of her for just a second and looked at the man in confusion as she reached for her tanto, hoping to distract him. "Festivities? There is no festi." She was again cut off by a sigh from the man who at this time began counting down with his right hand. "Just look at the village and wait," said the man as he looked up around the village. Using this opening to her advantage, the fox-masked Anbu quickly pulled out her tanto ready to attack with Kaiden chakra already coding it, ready to avenge her fallen comrade. 5. The man yawned out, not even looking as he evaded the female Anbu's charge by moving to her side. 4. He said as an Anbu-styled tanto, 1, materialized from in his left hand. 3. He said, but this time with a hint of excitement in his voice as he slashed down, severing the Anbu's hands from her forearms. 2. With a few quick, precise, and almost reflexive movements he slashed, severed, and stabbed several vital points in her body before she could even scream out in pain. 1. He said as the Anbu's now lifeless body fell into the ground. 0. He screamed out in joy for all to hear. And then there was silence. This was followed by even more silence. "What the hell?" the man said, looking around with a sweat drop on his head. "Did I mess up my timing or something? Cause I swear to God I'll kill EV." Couldn't even finish what he was saying as numerous explosions began to occur all over the city, catching even him by surprise and making him fall off the post and fall face first on the ground. He remained motionless as hundreds of thousands of explosive tags began detonating, destroying various parts of the city: the ninja district, the clan district, the civilian district, the market district, the red light district. No part of the village was spared from the attack that just occurred, save where he was right now, face down on the ground under one of the posts in the ninja district and the Hokage monuments. As the explosions began to subside, the man lying there on the ground began laughing maniacally, for now ignoring the obvious amounts dust and rubble piling up all around him. Bawahahahaha. This is great. I've spent, ha 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 ha, years, planning this, and I didn't even, ha 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 ha, get to see it in the end. This is great. Ha 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 ha. This is great. H. Pushing himself off the ground, the man slowly stood up, dusting himself as he began flaring his own chakra. Man, that was a good laugh, the man said before feeling numerous chakra signatures converging to his location. Well then, let the festival begin, said the man as he held his tanto in hand and started a mad dash towards the area with most chakra signatures. Scene change. With Hikate Kakashi. How did it come to this? Were the thoughts of one Hitaki Kakashi as he desperately tried to dodge the precise attack of his assailant. Even with the famed Sharingan, he was barely dodging the flurry of attacks sent his way. Flashback. A few minutes ago, he and 7 other Jonins decided to go and investigate the only place in the ninja district without any explosions. He was quite worried about his friends and their teams as they were in Konoha at the time of the explosions. However, being a ninja, Kakashi had no time to worry about the others, as his top priority right now was to kill or capture the one responsible for this attack. As Kakashi and the Jonins moved towards their destination, they began to smell a thick amount of blood in the air. A few moments later, they arrived at a scene that will be forever etched in their minds, or at least Kakashi's mind. Play. Yumaniko no Naku Koro ni BGM The Executioner. There stood a man who looked like he was in his mid-teens. Kakashi stared at the teen that had an all-familiar-looking blonde spiky hair. The man was standing there laughing in the middle of at least 60 bodies of various ninjas from Genin to Anbo. They were all brutally slain beneath the man's feet. Kakashi took a closer look at the teen, who he observed was wearing an all-black attire consisting of shinobi sandals, jeans, shirt, and an open-zip hoodie over his shirt, too. The teen was also wearing a white mask with a creepy grin. 3. It has blood splattered all over it, but that wasn't the most disturbing part. No, far from it. The most disturbing part were the 2 blue eyes with a crimson ring in the middle peering from the eyes of the mask. 4. The very same damnable blue eyes that were looking straight at the famous copycat nin, as if peering into his very existence. "You monster!" A young Jonin in his early 20s roared out as he made a mad dash towards the man, kunai in hand. The man stood there still staring at the copycat nin, as if not acknowledging the other man's existence. "Die! Yo!" The Jonin failed to scream out as his target quickly flicked his wrist tanto in hand, which went through the unlucky Jonin, successfully bisecting him in half. The remaining Jonins froze at what they just witnessed. The man just effortlessly killed one of their own with but a flick of his wrist. Kakashi was the first to snap out of his shock, but before he could give any orders, the man disappeared in a burst of inhuman speed, slashing 2 other Jonins in their jugulars, effectively killing them. The group, now fully out of their shock, began to spread out. Kakashi immediately pulled up the leaf hite covering his eye to reveal his implanted Dujutsu, the Sharingan, to try and follow the man's movements. One of the remaining Jonins, a man who was in his early 40s with a bald head, began going through some hand signs. "Raiden! Gion!" he screamed out, hoping to hit the enemy who was approaching him, only for the masked man to once again disappear. Kakashi barely saw an outline of the man, who with another burst of inhuman speed appeared behind the Jonin firing the Raiden Gion and slit the man's throat open with his tanto. With the jutsu still activated, the masked man quickly aimed the head of the now dead Jonin towards the only female Jonin in the group, who tried to sneak up on him, sword drawn. This a fatal mistake for the Jonin, as she quickly found herself impaled in the chest by the B-rank jutsu. The last remaining Jonin aside from Kakashi decided to use this small opportunity to go through some hand seals while jumping back, further distancing himself from the man. "Kaden! Gokakyu no Jutsu!" the Jonin yelled out before expelling a massive orb of roaring fire towards the teen. The masked man looked at him impassively before swinging his tanto. "Shinkyuken!" the man whispered before slicing the fireball in half. The Jonin watched in shock. The fire he spewed forth was sliced in half. Not letting it distract him, the man began going through some hand signs again, finishing it off with a tiger seal. "Kaden! Zukoku!" the man said before creating a gigantic firestorm, spreading widespread destruction towards the masked man. But again to the Jonin's shock the flames disappeared before it even reached the man. The man started going through some hand seals again, but this time he wasn't given a chance to finish as the man appeared in front of him and with one fluid motion stabbed him in the heart with the tanto. This all happened in the span of 45 seconds. Kakashi stood there on his guard as the masked man pulled out his tanto from the other Jonin's chest. There was no time to be shocked. He was facing against an opponent who was as fast if not faster than his old sensei Namikaze Minato. The man then looked at Kakashi with those soul-piercing blue eyes once more before he charged in. Kakashi with his Sharingan flaring immediately jumped back, barely avoiding a slash aimed for his chest. He countered immediately by throwing a few kunais, some of them with explosion tags attached to them. The man deflected the kunais but noticed the tags a bit too late and was caught in the explosion. Using the explosion as a distraction, Kakashi instantly went through some hand seals. Sweden. Suiryuden no Jutsu, he said, firing off the gigantic water dragon towards the masked assailant. Unfortunately, the man dodged by jumping to the side. However, the man failed to notice the small amount of water that accumulated thanks to the earlier attack, so the man was quite surprised when he was shocked to the bone by Raiden Chakra thanks to a follow-up jutsu Kakashi used. Sweden. Suiryuden no Jutsu followed by Raiden. Jabashi impressive. The man muttered under his breath as it was now his turn to stick to defense. Kakashi charged in and immediately found himself in a taijutsu match against his assailant. Despite the man's newfound sluggishness after getting hit by the Raiden jutsu, Kakashi still found a hard landing, a decent hit on the guy. Every punch or kick he threw was either dodged or countered by several slashes, which resulted in dozens of cuts and gashes all over the silver-haired Junin's body. Kakashi backed away after the small battle and observed his opponent's tanto. Wind chakra, huh? Damn, you just had to make this harder for me. Despite his calm facade, Kakashi was already panicking inside his head, and why wouldn't he? This man just killed 7 Jonins in a few seconds and was fast as hell, and now he finds out that the man has a wind affinity. For God's sake, it was like the man was the worst probable matchup for him. The moment he distanced himself, he felt his instincts kick in, screaming at him to move. The man immediately used Kawarimi to dodge a swift stab to the back aimed for his left lung, the sluggishness earlier shown now gone. Kakashi shivered at the thought of that hitting as he continued trying to keep his distance, searching for even the smallest openings, which sadly his opponent wasn't giving him. While keeping his distance, Kakashi threw some kunai and shuriken towards the man and even fired a Kaden Gokakyu no Jutsu. The man simply deflected shurikens, evaded the kunais, and sliced the fireball in half. Kakashi looked around and saw that the man was standing still in front of him, looking bored, as if daring him to make a move. Kakashi could only grit his teeth at the teen's arrogance as he quickly made a pair of cage bunchins, both of which began going through some hand seals. Sweden. Suiryuden no Jutsu, said one clone as it fired another water dragon towards the masked man before dispelling. Kaden Goryuka no Jutsu, said the other clone before firing a gigantic dragon head-shaped fireball towards the teen before following the same fate as the other clone. The masked man quickly used Kawarimi and switched positions with one of the corpses near him to evade the attack. However, what he failed to realize was that the Sweden and Kaden jutsu were just a distraction. As the two jutsus hit the same spot, the blazing hot Goryuka no Jutsu evaporated the Suiryuden no Jutsu, creating a blanket of warm steam covering everyone around the area. The masked man looked around searching for the copy nin, only to be surprised when a pair of hands appeared underneath the earth and held him in place. Shit, muttered the man as he began hearing the sounds of 1,000 birds chirping, fast approaching towards him. Chidori! Screamed Kakashi as he pierced the man right at his chest, only for it to quickly disappear in a puff of smoke. Kakashi's eye widened as he barely had time to register what happened before he felt a sharp jab connecting to his face, knocking him back a few feet. The enemy immediately went after him, giving him no time to recover. Flashback end. A few more minutes of dodging and evading the strikes passed, which felt like an eternity for the copy nin before his enemy decided to stop his assault. Kakashi, not taking this for granted, immediately jumped back a few feet away. This small chance given to Kakashi by his opponent gave him enough time to think of possible options on how to deal with the enemy, only for that to process to stop immediately once the masked teen in front of him began talking. Konbawa Kakashi-sensei. Those simple words with that overly familiar happy-go-lucky tune was enough to make Kakashi's blood run cold. Naruto. The silver-haired man just stared at the masked blonde in front of him. Now sensei, no need to go spacing out on me, you need to liven up, enjoy the festival we're having today, or would you rather go home early and sleep like the rest of them? Said Naruto, motioning towards the pile of bodies surrounding the two of them. Sensei, I feel a lot of people coming here, so I want you to follow me so we can play some more. Let's meet at the top of the heads, ne? Bring everyone with you there, cause the festival is just beginning, Naruto said before vanishing in a whirl of leaves. Naruto, wait, tisk damn. He used Shunshin, Kakashi muttered while breathing heavily as he tries to assess the situation. He was heavily wounded right now, at most he has 15% of his chakra left. Quickly reaching in his pouch, Kakashi took some food pill to replenish his chakra to about 50%. He rested for a bit as he back up arrived another group of Jonins, this one led by his longtime rival Maida Guy. Kakashi, what happened here? Guy asked as he approached his rival. With a bit of his chakra replenished, Kakashi looked at Guy. We need to head towards the Hokage monument now. I'll explain what happened to you when we get there, said Kakashi as he immediately used Shunshin to get to the Hokage monument. Hokage monument. With Naruto. The man now known as Naruto was standing high above the head of his father, the Yondaime Hokage, his tanto sheathed and sealed in his left hand. Well then, I guess it's time for some proper introductions, said Naruto as he began flaring his chakra while concentrating some of it in his throat to increase his voice. I am Namikaze Uzumaki Nanaya Naruto. Damn, that was a mouthful, announced Naruto with a hint of amusement in his voice. The Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Yoko. The sacrifice of Konoha. The legacy of the fourth. The heir to the Namikaze and Uzumaki clan. And the next head of the Nanaya clan, and above all else. I am. Naruto stopped for a moment as he was surrounded by at least 200 of Konoha's finest shinobis. He spotted a few familiar faces amongst the crowd, including his peers from a few years back and their senseis, but he decided to ignore them for now. As I was saying, I am a monster. He was cut off by a cold and harsh voice that he was oh so familiar with. Naruto looked closely at the old man who walked forward from the crowd, who was parting to let him through. The man was wearing his cage robes and was the current Hokage, the leader of Konoha. Ah, Kambawa Hokage-sama, said Naruto in a mock cheery tone. Nice for you to join us. Are you enjoying the festivities too, ne tilde Danzo-tan? Silence, demon, was the old man's harsh reply as he snapped his fingers, summoning 100 of his personal anbus to the scene. The blonde couldn't help but let out a whistle. That was so cool. But I think I can pull it off better, Naruto said as snapped his fingers for all to hear. To the shock of every single Konoha nin in the area, several hooded figures materialized out of nowhere, appearing behind Naruto. This made each and every one of them tense up almost instantaneously. Oh, and as I was saying, Danzo-san, I am Konoha's reckoning. I am vengeance. I am the inevitable. I am this village's death, said Naruto with a deep cold voice enough to send shivers even down the old warhawk's spine. Naruto took one cold look at the current cage, his eyes glowing unnaturally. He stared as if he was looking at the old man's very existence from behind his mask. The old cage couldn't help but break his usually cold and stoic demeanor as the feeling of not only his but Konoha's death approached him. Naruto smirked underneath his mask as he summoned his tanto and slowly unsheathed it, signaling the beginning of an all-out war, or Wasatsujin. Anbu safe house. Secret delivery room in Konoha. A man was standing in the delivery room holding his wife's hand. The man has spiky blonde hair whose bangs went till his jaw. He had slightly tanned skin, and cerulean blue eyes. He was wearing a long-sleeved dark blue shirt with a symbol of a red whirlpool emblazoned in the shoulders, paired up with dark blue standard jonin pants. The man was Namikaze Minato, known as the Yondaime Hokage, Konoha no Kiroi Senko, and currently he was having a very bad day, and I mean a really bad day. Minato himself expected that today would be a great day. He never even thought of the possibility that it was going to be his last. He was excited and happy that his beautiful red-haired goddess of a wife Kushina was giving birth to their first baby, a boy who they decided to name Naruto after the character from his sensei Jiraiya's novel. Although, he was lying if said he wasn't worried about the delivery since his wife was currently imprisoning the Kyuubi and the seal holding it in place would weaken the moment she gave birth, but what are the chances of someone using that to their advantage and freeing the beast to destroy Konoha? His worries were soon replaced by happiness. Heck, he couldn't think of any time he was happier than then moment Kushina gave birth to their new pride and legacy. He was finally a dad for Kami's sake. It made him smile that the kid even inherited his blonde hair. He just knew the kid would break hearts in the future. It was definitely the happiest moment of his life. He was too happy in fact that he let his guard down for a few seconds. And in the end it only took a few seconds for this perfect day to go down the drain. The spiky-haired blonde was glaring at the figure in front of him, a masked man wearing a black cloak that covered most of his body. The man had managed to kill all the Anbus guarding the place, break through all the barriers he set around the hideout, sneak in, kill the midwives Sarutobi Bawako and Taji, and grab his newborn son Naruto who was now being held as a hostage. Yep, this day couldn't possibly get any worse. Move away from the host or the child dies, the masked man said. Calm down, Minato said as he was readying himself to react to whatever the masked man might do. I am perfectly calm. Maybe you should calm down, Minato, said the man as he threw the newborn up in the air. With his kunai already drawn, the man jumped up ready to impale Naruto. Only to be stopped by Minato, who quickly grabbed the baby boy away from the masked man. However, as he grabbed his son, Minato noticed the detonating explosive tags hidden in the beneath the blanket that was wrapped around him. With no choice left, Minato vanished using his Hiraishin no Jutsu to teleport to one of their many safe houses. He quickly threw away the blanket as he hugged his son tightly and jumped out of the house before it exploded. Seeing that now him and his son was safe, the Yondaime Hokage used the Hiraishin again to teleport to the Namikaze compound where he and Kushina were currently living in. You'll be safe here, Minato said to his son as he gently placed him on a bed. Smiling at his son, Minato vanished in a flash of yellow light, ready to save his wife from the masked man. After teleporting around various locations, Minato soon found his wife Kushina in a forest in the outskirts of Konoha, and that's not all, he also spotted the gigantic demon fox who was about to kill his wife. With a burst of speed, Minato managed to grab his wife and dodge the attack. He appeared atop a tree carrying his wife bridal style, a position that reminded him of how he rescued her from those Kumo nins years ago. Is Naruto all right? Said the former Jinchuriki, her voice already ragged and weak. Yeah, don't worry Kushi, he's in a safe place now, he said before turning his head back and glaring at the masked man who was standing in a distance. Minato, you have to stop that man, and the Kyuubi, they're heading to Konoha, she said in panting, clearly weakened. Looking down at his wife, Minato decided to hold the pursuit against the masked man. He quickly used Hiraishin to teleport back to his house and placed Kushina besides Naruto. Minato, thank you, but go now. I'll be back soon, Minato said as he wore his signature white coat decorated by flame-like motifs around the edges with the kanji for 4th Hokage proudly written vertically down the back before teleporting away. Konohagakure atop the Hokage monument. Minato appeared atop his head in the Hokage monument, unknown to him that it was at that exact same spot as where his son will stand future, not to save Konoha like he was about to do but rather destroy it. He looked towards the Kyuubi who paused at its path of destruction and looked at him. He sensed me, Minato said, knowing full well that the masked man was currently in control of the beast. The beast began to charge chakra at its mouth, forming a gigantic sphere of death that will surely annihilate anything it comes into contact with. Seeing this, Minato went through some hand seals. The beast fired its Bijudama towards his location. After finishing his hand seals, Minato grabbed one of his tri-pronged kunai and with it erected the Jikukan Kekai, a space and time barrier which managed to divert the attack by sending it far away from the village. Before he could even celebrate, his instincts flared. Minato spun around, tri-kunai at hand, ready to kill the masked man who suddenly manifested behind him, only to be shocked as his kunai passed through the man as if he wasn't even there. The masked man grabbed Minato's hand after his attack missed. You'll have to beat me before you deal with the Kyuubi, said the man as he began using a strange jutsu which tried to absorb Minato, to which Minato predictably used the Hiraishin and teleported away. Tisk, He jumped away. Have to suck him in quicker the next time, said the masked man before vanishing into a spiraling vortex. Destroyed safe house. Yep, it was official. This was worst day ever, Minato thought as he was quickly realized that he was currently fighting against a man who can use space-time jutsu, knew about the Kyuubi's seal and was controlling it, the barrier around Konoha and how to avoid and break them. Yep, he was fighting against Uchiha Madara, oh joy. But wait, that guy was dead, so who the hell was he glaring at right now? Oh, and now the masked man was talking about war and peace or something along that line. Well, more he talks more time. Minato had to think of how to shove a Rasengan up the man's ass for this stunt he's trying to pull. Minato readied himself to attack as the masked man took out and wore a pair of handcuffs with a really long chain between them. After a few seconds both men charged at each other. Minato, holding on to his tri-pronged kunai, stabbed it forward, passing through the masked man right into the chain of his cuffs, which the man immediately used to try and bind the blonde with. Seeing what was about to happen, Minato used the Hiraishin to teleport a few feet away from the man to where one of his tri-pronged kunai was located. Minato stared at his opponent for a moment, so he can't be intangible and touch me at the same time. The best time to attack is the moment before he touches me, the Cage thought as he began devising a new plan of attack. Minato, with kunai in hand, decided to once more charge at his opponent. The masked man obliged by running towards the Hokage, hands up front, waiting for one moment in order to beat the Cage to the ground. When he was only a few feet away from his opponent, Minato used his left hand to throw his tri-pronged kunai at the masked man's head while he charged a Rasengan in his right. As expected, the tri-pronged kunai passed through the man's head. Thinking he was victorious, the man for one split second turned off his intangibility in order to attack the blue-eyed Cage. I win, the masked man proclaimed, only for the Cage to teleport behind him right where the tri-pronged kunai was. Rasengan, the Yondaime said as he slammed the whirling ball of chakra at the masked man. After hitting his opponent, Minato immediately placed the Hiraishin's Jutsu Shinki on his opponent's back before the man managed to jump away and retreat from the Cage. You got me, the masked man said as his left arm fell to the ground in a mushed-up pile of flesh. Before the man could even blink, Minato Namikaze was already in front of him with one of the man's tri-pronged kunai already stabbing him in the stomach. While the Yondaime's right hand was placed in his chest. The masked man looked down on his chest and spotted a strange-looking seal. A Keiyaku Fuin, are you trying to break my contract with the Kyuubi? As of now you no longer control it. The masked man jumped up onto a branch of a close-by tree, immediately looking down on the Cage. The man stated, no wonder you're the Yondaime Hokage. Not only did you manage to wound me, but you also took away the Kyuubi from me. But don't worry, the Kyuubi will be mine once more. Minato could only stare at the masked man as the very fabric of time and space began bending to his will. I am the ruler of the world. I have many means at my disposal, the masked man said boldly as a swirling distortion centered on his eye began to form, absorbing the man into the void, vanishing from the battlefield. That man, he wasn't lying, was Minato's thought as he heard the loud roar of the Kyuubi echo throughout Konoha, and with the Minato teleported away. Battlefield. Kachiyose no Jutsu. Minato screamed, summoning the gigantic boss of the Toads, Gamabunta. The toad landed on top of the Kyuubi, giving everyone in the battlefield a good look at it. It has dull, rust-red colored with red markings on his eyes, lips, and chest, with a scar on his left eye, wearing a large blue Yakuza-styled vest. The ninjas of Konoha rejoiced as they spotted the figure atop the toad. It was no other than their leader, Minato Namikaze. The ninjas began to cheer, thinking their victory was at hand, none of them noticing the pained look on the Cage's face as he began contemplating about what the masked man said. Kushina, I'm sorry, the Cage thought before ordering the giant toad, hold the Kyuubi back for a little while. You better hurry up, Minato, even I can't hold him back for long, the toad said, trying his best to comply with the Cage's wishes. I'll need some time and a lot of chakra to send something this big away. The toad began pushing down, adding more pressure to try and stop the Kyuubi, who was now charging a Bijudama. After a few seconds of holding down the Kyuubi, the boss toad finally landed in the ground as Minato and the Kyuubi vanished. Mountains outside of Konoha. The Kyuubi landed on the mountain range and began looking around for the one that brought it here to this area. Still furious about the events that transpired earlier, the Kyuubi was desperately looking around to vent on something. That something sadly was the Yondaime Hokage who landed near the Kyuubi, but he was not alone. In his left hand he was carrying a child, his son Naruto, and in his right was his wife Kushina. I have to set up a barrier. I'm almost out of chakra, Minato said, panting heavily. I can still fight? Kushina said weakly as she began materializing chakra chains which shot out of her back and surrounded the Kyuubi in an attempt to hold it in place. Now, Q-chan, calm down, Databane, she said before coughing out some of her own blood until she heard the sound of her son crying. I guess we woke him up? Sorry, Naruto? Nay? Minato-kun, I'm going to draw Q-chan in and kill myself afterwards. That way, we can put Q-cha's resurrection on hold. Cough cough, that's the only way I can help you. She looked at the love of her life smiling, trying her best not to cry or look sad. Thank you for everything. She looked at her husband. Minato, don't look like that. Don't look sad, smile. I'm happy. You love me, and it's his birthday today, we're supposed to be happy, she said with tears forming in the side of her eyes. Don't cry, when I think about what our life would be like together, if I live. I can only picture happiness. If there's one thing I'll regret, it's that cough cough I won't get to see Naru-chan grow up. Hearing what the words of his wife, Minato steeled his resolve. If this was going to be the day that he dies, he might as well go out doing something for the world. Kushina, you don't need to die with the Kyuubi. I'll seal your remaining chakra inside Naruto with a Hake Fuin, then I will take the Kyuubi down with me. Using the Shiki Fujin. But that seal will kill you. I know, but with it I can seal half of the Kyuubi's power forever? The other half, I will seal in Naruto with the Hake Fuin. I know what you're going to say, Kushina. I know the life of a Jinchuriki can be hard, but I believe in our son. As the host, he will create the future, and for that I entrust him with my life. Minato, but Kushina tried to retort only to stop, realizing that this was going to be her last moments with her husband. Hitsuji, you, Inu, Nei, Tori, Uma, said Minato while doing the accompanying hand seals. Have faith in this child, Kushina. He's our son after all. With a clap of his hand, the faith of one Namikaze Minato was sealed. Shiki Fujin, Minato said as an apparition of death itself appeared behind him, ready to perform the task of sealing the Kyuubi in exchange for his mortal soul. Minato looked at his wife with a sad smile in his face. I want you to promise me. I want you to help him out when he tries to control the Kyuubi. But he's our son. I don't want him to bear Q-chan, to preserve balance between vice. For our country? Our village? There's no reason to sacrifice him for that. You shouldn't sacrifice yourself for me. Me being the sacrifice was enough. Minato didn't reply, he just continued looking at her. I am willing to die for my son. That is the only thing I can do for him as a father, he said to her, smiling. The spirit of death pushed its hand into Minato, passing through him and eventually reaching for the bound Kyuubi, who for some unknown reason wasn't struggling. Fuin, Minato said as part of the Kyuubi was ripped away from it and sealed away. Immediately afterwards, Minato used the Hake Fuin and began sealing the surprisingly calm and docile Kyuubi into his son. Kushina, who currently kneeling beside Minato, slowly looked up to Kyuubi with a sad smile on her face. Nay, Q-chan. I'm sorry. I wasn't able to keep my promise. I hope Naruto can grant it for you. As if listening to her, the Kyuubi nodded and slowly closed its eyes, accepting its fate. As Kushina was conversing with the Biju, Minato just finished giving a scroll-like looking frog Gamatora the key to the seal. Take it to Jiraiya sensei and immediately store it inside him. As the frog disappeared, Minato began using the Hake Fuin another time. This time he started sealing some of his and Kushina's chakra into Naruto. Minato, Kushina said weakly as the apparition of death drew out its blade while pulling out the now entwined soul of Minato and the Kyuubi. Kushina looked away as the Shinigami swung down its blade, thus ending the life of her beloved husband Namikaze Minato. The now crying Kushina approached her husband's dead body and began hugging it, crying her heart out for a few minutes before she began coughing out some more blood. Realizing that her time was numbered, Kushina crawled towards Naruto. Once she reached Naruto, she began petting his head, looking at him sadly, tears overflowing, She leaned down and gave him a kiss on the forehead. No matter what path you choose, I will always support you. Also, take care of Q-chan. She can be a bit problematic, but I'm sure the two of you will get along, and remember, I will always love you. And with those words, Kushina Uzumaki passed away with a content smile on her face. Hokage's office. Sarutobi Hiruzen was known as the Shinobi no Kami, one of the most famous and feared shinobi throughout the elemental nations. He was also well known as the student of both Shodem Hokage Senju Hiroshima and the Niodame Hoki Senju Tobarama, as well as the teacher of the famous Sannin of Konoha. The now re-elected Hokage of Konohagakure Hiruzen was currently in his mid-50s with gray hair and beard. Wrinkles and liver spots spread all over his face. He was a textbook definition of an old man, was also wearing the Hokage hat with a kanji of fire on it and a haori which was over a red kimono that was tied using a white sash. Kami, damn it, this is why I retired. I'm seriously too old for this shit, Sarutobi said, as like his now deceased successor was having an hour ago, was experiencing one of the worst days of his life. Where should he start? Oh yeah, first his wife Bawako and a bunch of Anbu were found dead in the secret location they picked for Kushina's delivery. The Kyuubi went on a rampage, killing a lot of Konoha's ninjas and civilians, and let's not forget all the property damage. Hell, the only district which was miraculously left unscathed was the Red Light District, which he was sure one of his students will enjoy. Then he watched as the Yondaime Hokage and his wife Kushina die in front of him, but thank God they managed to seal the damn fox before they died, or else Konoha would be in deeper shit. And to top things off, his trusty pipe was destroyed during the attack, and Kami forbid he needed a good drag right about now. Yep, this day was just fun-tastic. Oh, and did he forget to mention about the various members of the Shinobi Council bitching and acting like kids in front of him? Yep, his mental checklist of the things that happened today just kept getting better and better. That monster killed my husband. I say we killed at the demon now. A feral-looking woman wearing the standard Konoha Jonin outfit consisting of a flak jacket over a black suit said. Upon further inspection, she appeared to have long, spiky, untamed brown hair with red fang markings on her cheeks and over her eyes. It would be illogical to put the blame on the child. Sume-san, retorted a man wearing a high-collared outfit with spiky short black hair who sported mustache, said as he pushed his dark glasses up to his eyes with his index finger. Shut up, Shibi. The now known Inazuka Sume said with a growl. You're only saying that cause the Aburame clan suffered the minimal losses during the attack. Now calm down, Sume-san, we all suffered losses today, said a big-boned man with long red hair and two purple facial markings on his cheeks. The man was wearing an outfit reminiscent of that of a samurai with the kanji of food in it. Let's all calm down and think about this carefully, he added. A man with long black hair and featureless white eyes wearing the standard Jonin outfit decided to join the conversation. Shuza-san, I have to agree with Sume-san, it is better to kill it now before it becomes stronger and possibly attack the village once more, said the man coldly. But he is just a child, Hiyashi-san. I agree with Shuza-san, we should think about this carefully before we make a decision that we might regret, was voiced out by a man with shoulder-length black hair with his bangs hanging atop his forehead in a wave-like pattern. He also has a mustache much like Shibi, only thicker. Like Hiyashi and Sume, he was also wearing the Jonin outfit that seemed a bit dirtier due to the earlier battle. Oh, Murakumo-san, what do you propose we do then? Replied Hiyashi. The man now known Murakumo paused for a moment and began thinking, and sadly he couldn't come up with a proper response that will satisfy all parties. Mendokusai, guess who said it, and you'll get a cookie. Why am I even here? This is stupid, just let the kid live. He's not the demon, he's the container. Killing him will just release the beast upon Konoha, the man said lazily. I agree, it's better if we let the kid live. We need to realize that he is not the fox but is the prison that seals it. Do not blame it for the sins of the monster, told the blonde Jonin with long spiky hair and ponytail. The Uchiha clan head added to the conversation. Uchiha Fugaku is a man who has short black hair that reached to his shoulders and onyx-colored eyes. Like his son Itachi, Fugaku also had visible creases below them, and like the others in the room he was wearing the standard Konoha Jonin uniform. He currently standing in a corner of the room silently pretending he gave a damn about what was going on, was wearing the standard Jonin outfit like the others, As far as the man was concerned, as long as this event didn't affect the clan, he could care less. It's not like they'll pin this attack on the Uchihas, right? I agree with letting child live. I also propose that he is placed under my tutelage so I can train him to become Konoha's perfect weapon. Try to guess who said this one and you'll get another cookie, said the man with the two other elders. The first was an old woman in her 50s. Her hair is pulled back in a twin bun locked by a hairpin, and she was wearing a long kimono, closed by an obi, a jacket, and a sash over it. Standing beside her was a man around her age. He had a constant frown in his face, accompanied by his gray hair, a beard, and glasses. His garb is similar to what Sarutobi is wearing. It will benefit Konoha if we put the demon under Danzo's tutelage, Sarutobi, said the old woman. Sarutobi, I agree with Danzo and Kohaku. If we put the demon under Danzo, we can control it and have the ultimate weapon to protect Konoha, added by the man wearing glasses. The bickering of the elders and the ninja council, with the exception of the current head of the Uchiha clan, continued completely oblivious to the killing intent slowly building up around the Sandaime. Silence. The old man ordered release a lot of killing intent. Yep, the man internally smirked as that shut them all up. After seeing that he has everyone's attention, the old man began to speak. Even if he wanted the boy to live, the Hokage knew that if majority of the clan heads disagree of the decision, it may lead to internal conflict within the people of Konoha and might as well start a civil war. With all the bickering going around, I doubt we'll get to a decision soon. He paused for a while to let his words sink in. First of all, Danzo, despite your ideas, the child will not be put into one of your training facilities to be turned into an emotionless tool. The old war hawk opened his mouth ready to reply with whatever stupid reason he has. Understood? The old man said, releasing a great amount of killing intent, reminding everyone in the room why he is called Shinobi no Kami. The war hawk reluctantly backed down. Hi. He replied to the cage. Secondly, I have decided the best way to solve this problem is for us to take a vote. And whatever the outcome of this is, all of you will comply. Understood? The clan heads and elders nodded their heads in compliance. Sume, you may take the first vote. The Inuzuka wishes for the demon's death. The Aburame wishes for the boy to live. The Hyuga wishes for its death. The Akamichi wishes for the boy to live. The Nara wishes for the child to live. The Yamanka wishes for the child to live. The Uchiha wishes for the child's death. If not under the tutelage of Danzo, the Elder Council wishes for the demon's death, spoke Kohaku with no remorse in her words. Sarutobi cleared his throat. As it stands, if 4 votes to let the child live, 4 votes to let the child die. Murakumo-san, what is your vote on this matter? Asked the old cage. The head of the Kurama clan closed his and was in deep thought. He was feeling the stares of all the members in the room. Being a ninja, Murakumo was used to making life or death choices, but never in his life would he imagine that he would have to make a choice in this grand scale. He now holds the vote that will decide Konoha's future. The head of the Kurama, he said as everyone was still staring at him waiting for his decision. Wishes for the child to live. He finished, and without knowing earned the future respect of one Uzumaki Naruto. With 5 votes for life, and 4 votes for death, I, Sarutobi Hiruzen, declare that the child is to live. The old cage snapped his fingers. Inu, he said. An Anbu with gravity-defying silver hair wearing a dog mask appeared. Hi, Hokage-sama? The Anbu asked. Bring the child here. The Anbu nodded before disappearing in a whirl of leaves. 30 seconds later, the man reappeared holding a crying blonde baby in his hands. This child will be sent to an orphanage until he is of proper age. He will also be put under 24/7 Anbu surveillance to ensure that no one does any harm to him. This child is not to be seen as a demon, but rather a hero that is sealing the beast within him. I am also passing a law that no one is to speak about the beast sealed within the child. Breaking this law will result in harsh punishment and death. Understood? Asked the cage, looking intently at everyone in the room, but soon stopped as he heard a knock on the door. Enter, said the old man. The civilian council is already in the meeting room, Hokage-sama. The secretary, a woman in her late 20s, said. Meeting dismissed, the Hokage said as the various clan heads began to leave the room. Inu, look after the child until I return. We will put him in an orphanage after the meeting. Don't let anything happen to him. Understood? The old man said, looking intently at the Anbu. Hi, Hokage-sama. I will protect this child with my life. The old man smiled before exiting the room. The masked Anbu smiled underneath his mask, as he looked at the baby's sleeping form patting him slightly in the head. Sleep well, Naruto. Satsujin. The birth of a killer. 3 days later, the old man called the professor could not believe how stupid he was feeling right now. He might be turning senile as he forgot to account men's ignorance and hatred which currently ran deep within the hearts of the majority of Konoha's citizens. He has already personally executed 2 Anbus who purposely told the civilians about Naruto's circumstance. He would later learn that the 2 lost majority of their loved ones in the attack. Only a few days old and there was already 43 attempts on the young Uzumaki's life. This was accompanied by the fact that for the last day there has been various riots all over the village wishing for the child's death. For Kami's sake they should concentrate on rebuilding the village, not frigging destroying it more. The old man sighed as he took out a new pipe, placed some tobacco in it and lighted up. The man took one long drag and then exhaled the smoke. He was taking a break from the tons of paperwork that piled up because of the Kyuubi's attacks as well as dealing with the retarded wishes of the civilians. Honestly, he wanted to just look for another successor and retire, but for the sake of the child he was willing to hold on this position for a while. The old man looked at the pictures of the former cages as he took another drag from his pipe. Minato, I'm sorry, he said as he has already began planning in order to make sure that the child would stay loyal to Konoha. Despite his adamant stand against the idea of his former teammate and friend Shimura Danzo to turn the child into a mindless weapon, he knew for a fact that this is a child who held limitless potential. He has Kyuubi sealed within him, and the blood of 2 powerful clans flowing within his veins, the Uzumaki's blood of longevity, high chakra reserves and affinity for Fuinjutsu, and the Namikaze's blood of high affinity towards the elements. He didn't like himself, but he had to put the village's well-being ahead of even the son of his successor, even if the same village wishes for the child's death. I'm going to burn in hell, the old man said as he put his pipe away and began doing some more paperwork. I'm sorry, he silently muttered one last time. 6 years later, it was a bright and sunny day in the village of the Hidden Leaves. The air was warm, yet there was a slight breeze helped ease it. The merchants were doing their thing selling stuff to populace. The Nara were looking after their deer. The Inazuka were looking after their dogs. The Yamanaka was tending to their flowers. The Uchiha and the Hyugas were acting like they had a stick up their ass. The children were playing happily in the streets as the adults set up stalls for the up-and-coming festival. All in all, a fine and perfect day to be a fine citizen of Konohagakure. Well, at least for everyone who wasn't a 6-year-old kid with blonde hair and lightly tanned skin. Oh, and don't forget about his pretty cerulean blue eyes and those 3 whisker-like birthmarks on each cheek. The small little munchkin was wearing a plain white shirt with the Uzumaki clan symbol emblazoned in its front over a black long-sleeved shirt with visible damage, tears and blood smears seen all over it, accompanied by a light orange shorts that, like the shirt, looks like it hasn't been cleaned in ages. 5. Speaking of the little devil, the little guy was currently busy playing with his friends along the alleys of the great village, and by friends I mean an angry mob, and by playing I mean getting chased around with a promise of pain if he was ever caught. Get ass back here, you monster! Yelled one of his friends, as he dodged another rock thrown at him intended for his head. Naruto looked back at the crowd chasing after him. For years now he has wondered why they were always after him. He didn't really do anything to them. Not a damn thing. They just started calling him demon one day, and started beating the crap out of him every chance they got. If there was one good thing about this whole chasing after him to beat the living shit out of him idea, is that it helped Naruto to develop his stealth, reflexes, pain tolerance, and ability to judge people. When he was younger, an old man who always wore those funny robes and that weird hat had told him that he'll protect the little Uzumaki and that everything will be alright. That this will eventually come to pass, that this will never happen again. It didn't, it just got worse over time. However, this did teach him one valuable lesson in life. Never fully trust anyone from Konoha. Other people might say that's too harsh, but really, how can he trust the people when they beat him half to death? Show him kindness, then try to beat him to death. Tell them that they won't hurt him and try to beat him to death. Give him food and say it's not poisoned, then beat him to death as he was lying on the in an almost catatonic state. Yet even Kami would have trust issues. A few years ago Naruto found out that the man who he half-heartedly called Gigi, since it looked like it pleased the old coot, was actually the current Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen. Naruto doesn't really know why, but he felt something wrong around that old man. That kind and warm smile he always wore when he was with him. It just felt fake, as if it was forced. All those warm smile and signs of affection coupled with his subtle speeches with the underlying messages about how awesome it was to be the Hokage and how one must sacrifice themselves for Konoha. The man also yapped about some wall of fire crap that was the equivalent of posting a "we want you" poster, telling him to serve and die for his country without second thought. Naruto knew the old man definitely had hidden motives. Why was he being so kind? What could this man want from him? The Kami damn Hokage, he had everything that the Uzumaki didn't. The man has the love and respect of his people. If the man wanted, he could sway the masses with ease so they would stop beating the crap out of him? Then at him, the old man was pushing him into becoming a shinobi of Konoha. To serve and protect that very people who was killing him. Why the hell would he even do that? For a man called the professor, that was extremely stupid. He would like to show his disgust towards the old man, but one really tiny problem that stops him from doing it. It might be the fact that the old man rules over an army of ninjas who can kill him if he messes with him. Majority of them really willing to do so in order to finish the Yondaime's work. That is assuming that he survives actually messing with the man himself, who has been through 3 shinobi wars. The old guy can probably kill him before he can even blink. So for now he decided to keep on smiling and acting like he believed what the old man was telling him. I'll become Hokage dat bayo my ass, he thought. Goddamn, stop dodging, you hell spawn, yelled another of his friends. This man, a ninja, threw a kunai wrapped with an explosive tag. Yes, a kunai with an explosive tag. At him, a freaking 6-year-old. Fuck, the child thought, as thank God the kunai missed him, but the explosive tag on the other hand found its target, sending his body flying. With a loud thump he fell to the ground, injured and bleeding. He looked up towards the rooftop, spotting a few of the Anbus who were supposed to be guarding him. Shit, the kid swore again in his mind as he noticed that the Anbus turtle and fox, who was guarding him, wasn't the ones with a dog, cat, or weasel mask, the only ones who actually did their job of protecting him. Naruto desperately tried to get up, but the attempts were cut off when he felt extreme pain from his legs. He looked back and saw something that made his eye widen. There were 2 frigging stone spikes impaling his legs. He looked around and saw that the mob was slowly surrounding him. He closed his eyes, slowly accepting his fate. He learned long ago that the mob leaves him alone earlier if he didn't cry out or struggle, but this time that didn't happen. Oh, far from it. After getting pummeled around for around half an hour, 2 kunais soon found themselves lodged in his forearms, pinning him face first on the ground. Wait, watch this, one man said. As soon enough, Naruto felt like he was a porcupine with various pricks all over his body, as if someone was stabbing him with needles all over his body, but it didn't really hurt. That was until the man crouched down beside him and placed a finger on one of the needles. The blonde screamed out as he began to feel an unimaginable amount of pain coursing all over his body. The mob found themselves laughing as the ninja made the demon scream out. The man smiled as he continuously sent Raiden chakra on different needles all over the demons, directly attacking and damaging his nerves. The man stabbed 2 other kunais at the kid's hands after noticing that the 2 pinning before were loosening up. Naruto kept screaming out as he felt more and more of the Raiden chakra coursing through him. He closed his eyes as tears started flowing out of it. His soft sobs was eventually heard by the crowds, which only made them laugh harder. "Oh look, the demon's crying," said one in a mocking voice. "Look, it's trying to act like it's human," said another. "You deserve to suffer, you demon brat. You have no right to cry," a feminine voice said in disgust. Naruto grit his teeth and tried desperately to stop his sobs. He hated it. He hated being so weak and trampled around by these people. Don't cry, he thought to himself, but really the torture wasn't helping as he broke out in even more tears as he screamed in pain. After 30 minutes of electrocution, the ninja stood up, pulled out the kunais and stone spikes, grabbed the now limp body of Naruto and threw him into the mob for another round of beating and stabbing. Naruto eventually opened his now bruised eyes as he saw a man's sword in hand approach him, his vision wavering so he didn't catch what the man looked like. "And with this the demon is slain," the man said as he unsheathed his sword and stabbed it down to the ground right through the heart of one Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto roared out in pain as his vision darkened, and soon enough he found himself embraced by death. Naruto Pav. Within the darkness of death I saw it. I saw it, if not only but a glimpse of it. I don't know what it is. Words cannot describe what I saw. I couldn't understand it. Trying to put it into words would be an insult to it. I looked at it, and I felt as if it looked back at me. I reached out, attempting to touch it, only to feel a tug on my back. It was pulling me. When it was almost within my grasp, I continued to reaching out. As I got pulled further back, I continued reaching out, tears already flowing out of my eyes, only to see it fade away, vanishing within the darkness. Still I continued reaching out, hoping I would reach it. Still I continued reaching out. Konoha Hospital. When I came to, the first thing he noticed was the smell of heavy disinfectant in the air. I figured I was in the hospital again, but something was strange. Something felt different as I opened my eyes and stared up on the familiar white ceiling. I could only see black scribbles around all over the white canvas, as if someone had a marker and scribbled all around it. I tried to stand up. It actually took a few minutes because those damn villages did way too much damage this time around. I looked around to see that it was not only the ceiling that had these weird lines, it was actually all over the place. I even looked at myself and noticed the very same lines running through his skin. Curious about what this line is, I slowly moved my hand and attempted to trace a line going down diagonally from my elbow to forearm. But before I even touched the line, I immediately sensed a feeling of dread, as if there was some sort of primal fear deep inside me screaming at me to not trace the line. Deciding that it was best to follow my instincts for now, I slowly pulled my hand back. I began feeling sick while I was looking around more and saw the more of the points and lines. Ag! I clutched my head as a wave of strong vertigo hit me. Itai! I screamed out loudly once more as I slowly found my vision wavering again. I closed my eyes and lay back down on the bed and tried to sleep, hoping the pain will go away. Mindscape. Play. Tsukihime, Track 2. I don't know where I was, but I strangely felt at peace. I opened my eyes as I felt a gentle warm breeze go over me. Munya tilde. I rubbed my eyes while yawning. Slowly pushing my body up, I began looking around, and I could honestly say I was quite surprised at what I found. I was sitting atop a grassy hill overlooking a wide green field filled with different flowers. As I looked at the sky, I felt myself at a loss for words. I was looking at the night sky, which was a mix of light green and dark blue, clouds freely floating about aloof like they are, stars shining around twinkling with light blue and purplish lights flaring in around, creating a wondrous night sky. 6. Beautiful, I said with my most honest feelings. This was really the most beautiful sight I have ever seen, even better than the view atop the Hokage monuments. Oya, what do we have here? A very feminine voice said, coming from behind me. I tensed up and turned around and couldn't help but blush at what I saw. That was the first time I saw someone so beautiful. No one in the village can hold a candle against her, not the cat Anbu, the snake woman, or even that woman with the red eyes. She stood there around 5 inches 4 tall with beautiful white skin. My eyes began traveling all over her body as I looked at her heart-shaped face, tender-looking lips. She has CC cup breasts, tight plump behind along with the perfect curves to go along with it, but what caught my attention was her long crimson hair that went to her calves, flowing with the slight breeze that enveloped both of us. 7. I don't know why, but there was something that felt nostalgic at her sight. It was as if I'd known her for a long time. Letting my eyes wander more, I also noticed wearing a black kimono with a golden sash in the middle. The kimono itself was a sight to behold, as it fit her boy perfectly, as it was showing off majority of her curves and assets without making it look too excessive. It also had beautiful flowers along its sleeves and shoulders. 8. I kept looking at her until her slitted blue eyes met with mine. It's rude to stare, you know, the woman said with sly smile on her face. My eyes widened as I realized I was gawking at her. Sorry miss. I replied nervously. I didn't really want such a beautiful woman like her hate me. Do you know where I am, Ms.? Her reply to my question was simply giggling. Why was she laughing? Did I say anything funny or wrong? Frowning, I asked her, Anyo, what's so funny? No, nothing is wrong. You are currently in the recess of your own mind while your real body is resting in the real world. The woman replied as she stopped giggling and slowly approached me. I immediately tensed and backed away, even though deep down inside I feel like I can trust this woman in front of me. I can't just take any chances. I really don't like getting hurt. The woman raised her brow as she observed the blonde's actions. She frowned, realizing why the boy reacted like that. She smiled sadly at the boy. "No need to worry, boy," she said with a voice full of truth and sincerity but with a hint of sorrow. "I won't hurt." She paused, adding, "I will never hurt you." I paused for a moment and began thinking, should I really trust her? I looked at her with wary eyes as I repeated her voice in my head over and over. So long as I can remember, I found my trust rewarded with nothing by pain, but having it happen to me so many times developed my skills of judging people, and from how I feel around in her and the tone she used earlier, I really could not even detect smallest hint of malice. Gulping, I decided to take a gamble. Do you promise not to hurt me, Nay-san?" Her response was to kneel on her knees into the same eye level at me as she looked at my eyes. For the second time that day, both blue eyes, as I said, "I will never hurt you. I promise." She paused for a few seconds. "Now would you mind telling me your name, little one?" she asked me. "I'm Uzumaki Naruto and I'll become Hokage Datbeo." She looked at me, a frown on her face. I looked at her as she moved forward and placed her arms around my shoulders and gave me a warm, gentle, and loving hug. My eyes widened at her gesture. No one has ever hugged me before. I honestly don't know how to react. I've seen some parents do it to their children, hugging them, and deep down inside I was always jealous of them. The warmth and the real feeling of knowing that someone was there for you, to love you. It was such a small and simple gesture, but it was enough to make me start crying. Play Yuma Nico BGM Wingless. "No need to lie to me, young one. Let it all out," she said with a sad tone. This was one of the few times that I had physical contact with some without resulting with me beaten and bruised instead. So I cried out while I hugged back. I cried out as I felt her hand rub my back. I cried out for all the pain that I felt in my life. I cried out because of all my loneliness. And finally I cried out in joy as I finally found even a small amount of happiness within these warm and loving embrace. My name is Naruto. People call me a monster? Demon. I don't have any parents. People tell me they abandoned me when I was born. I don't want to be Hokage. I hate this village, I said in between sobs. They hurt me. It hurts. Not just the pain of being beaten up, I feel it. The pain of loneliness. I hate the feeling, I hate it. I heard the older woman gritting her teeth, trying to contain her anger as she heard everything I told her. Every moment of suffering, every moment of pain. I don't know why, but the dam just broke and I really found letting out everything I built up onto her. I don't know how much time passed, but I eventually stopped crying, but she still continued hugging me. That was until I heard soft sobs coming from her. I'm sorry, she said as tears fell from her beautiful eyes. I looked at her, confused as she kept muttering sorry over and over again. What are you apologizing for? You don't need to be sorry for anything, I replied. She broke the hug and stood up, distancing herself a few steps away from me. Do you know why people hate you, young one? She said, tears still flowing down her face. My eyes immediately widened. That was one of the answers I desperately tried to look for. No. I replied, expecting to know the reason soon. It's because of me, she said, making me freeze on the spot. The first person to show me actual kindness was the cause of my suffering. What do you mean by that? I asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. I am known as the Kyuubi no Yoko, one of the great and all-powerful Biju. 6 years ago, I was forcefully freed from my previous container, your mother Uzumaki Kushina, by a masked man, and with those damnable red eyes he controlled me. I don't really know what the man made me do, but when I came to, I was surrounded by many ninjas and I was being attacked. Having no choice, I fought back. Although I do admit I would have just left, but I was still kinda mad because of that prick who dared to control me. She said, slightly scratching the back of her head in the end before continuing again. Eventually, though, your mother managed to calm me down. After I calmed down your father, the Namikaze Minato, the Yondaime Hokage, sacrificed his life to seal me within you. My eyes widened as I immediately tried to absorb the huge amount of information she just dumped on me. Despite what other might think, I wasn't really that excited about learning that my father was the 4th Hokage. I kinda figured that out early on. I wasn't a Yamanaka, and there was only another blonde who could have possibly be my dad. Yes, I did admire the man, but I admired him because of his skills and achievements that I read before in a book, not because of the fact that he was a Hokage. However, All the mental prowess I had left over after absorbing the information amount to one thing. Who was I going to blame for my crappy life? The masked man? This woman standing in front of me? My dad, the fourth Hokage? I closed my eyes and began thinking of how to respond to what she just told me. Why are you telling this to me? I asked her, slowly opening my eyes. Because, you deserve the truth, she replied as I saw closing her eyes as if she was preparing herself for me to lash out on her. Then I realized it, the way she was crying earlier. She regrets what happened. She felt guilt, she was controlled, forced to do something she didn't want. And now she realized that her very existence ruined my life. Another sin added in her already long amount. I approached her, looking at her. I saw her tensed up. I opened my arms and hugged her. Why? The woman asked, shaking as she opened her blue eyes, tears still flowing out of them. Because, you look sad? You look the same, like me? I told her as I tightened my hug. The red-haired beauty broke out into sobs as she hugged me as well. Time skip after all the mushy stuff. Play Mahu Tsukai no Yuru soundtrack, track 1. Can you help me get stronger? I asked. Why do you want power, young one? The crimson-haired woman replied to me as I was resting my head on her lap. I thought about it for a while and kept silent, thinking about her one simple question. Do you want to get stronger, so you won't ever need to cry anymore? Would it make all the hurt go away? I asked back, looking up to her. The woman looked down on me and with a sad smile, sorry young one. I have lived for a long time and there is one thing I know. You will always get hurt, one cannot prevent that. It is a sad part of living. As long as you live you will experience pain, the pain of getting beaten up, the pain of losing, the pain of sickness, the pain of losing someone you love. But eventually the more you experience pain the stronger you will get, and eventually the pain will come to pass. She paused for a moment and looked at him. So why to wish for strength, you want? I want to be stronger so that one day I can leave this village. I want to travel around the nations and find a new place I'll call home. I paused for a second before using a sad tone. I know it's a selfish reason, but please help me get stronger. The Kyuubi smiled at my simple wish as she answered. You already have the power, young one. You only need to mold and develop it. That actually caught me by surprise. What do you mean I already have the power? I asked excitedly. Wait, if I already had it, why do I still get beaten up? I asked as my excitement deflated and I started pouting. The Kyuubi laughed out, silly boy, if there is one thing you should thank those stupid villagers about is what they did to you this time. She said as she suddenly vanished, causing me to fall on the ground and hit my head. Itai, I said as I began looking around, eventually spotting the redhead standing in a distance. Have you noticed it yet, young one? Concentrate and look closely at everything here, she said as she raised her arms in the side. Look closely, what do you mean look clo? I stopped talking as I began noticing what she was talking about, the lines and points that suddenly appeared everywhere. I remember now, when I woke up the hospital bed earlier, saw them everywhere. What are they? This is your new power, young one, the Chokushi no Megan, answered the redhead as she slowly walked back towards me. Chokushi no Megan? I said to myself. Hi. Young one, it is the eyes unlocked by those who came into close contact with death, and in your case actually dying. Congratulations Naruto, you are now able to perceive death. A truly magnificent ability, a rarity even to my kind. The Biju is only but a myth. I looked at her in shock as I continued listening to her explanation. The lines you see, or as the legends called them, are the Shi no Sen, and the points are called Shi no Ten. You can say that those things represent the fate of all things, the finality, their end, their death, she added, sounding almost excitedly. By tracing against the Shi no Sen, you can effectively break the target along the line, cutting it cleanly, and the part corresponding to it will never move again even if the main body is alive. On the other hand, by stabbing or piercing the Shi no Ten, you can end one's existence. Their death is just an aftermath of their entire existence being destroyed. How do you know so much about them? I asked, a bit curious. This is because among my siblings I am the one with most knowledge. Since unlike that sloth the Sanbi or that insane bastard Shukaku, I actually used my time in this mortal realm to learn as much as I can, she said, pouting as she placed her arms below her bosom, pushing it up while looking away, acting defensively. Hi, just asking Ne-san, he said before looking back at the pouting redhead. I just remembered, but when I first opened my eyes and saw all these lines I got this massive headache. Do the eyes have anything to do with it? I asked. the redhead said as she placed one finger just below her lips and adopted thinking pose. I stared at her for a few minutes waiting for a response. I don't know, she said while sticking her tongue out, one hand rubbing the back of her head. My sweat dropped instantaneously. It might have been because it was your first time seeing them. You might need to get used them first, she added, still rubbing the back of her head with one hand. So how do I turn it off? I asked, getting a bit irritated in seeing all these squiggly lines. Better not touch anything here since this is my mind, and if I touch a point or a line, for all I know can end up like a vegetable in a matter of seconds, he thought. I can help you with that, she said with a hint of pride in her voice. The Kyuubi approached me and placed her hands over my head. Kodai Fuinjutsu. Magangoroshi. She screamed out as a bright red light began enveloping my body, forming a complicated array of seals in a language I don't even recognize appeared on the floor and around my entire body. Fuin, the redhead cried out as the array of words began to move upwards, more specifically to into my eyes, and I have to say it was quite a weird feeling seeing a lot of random symbols appear right in front of my eyes. Eventually each symbol of the arrays she formed vanished with a puff of smoke. So how is it? I heard Kyuubi ask. Looking around I noticed that I don't see the lines or points anymore. I can't see them anymore. The redhead smiled as she began talking once more. As of now I've sealed your eyes so that constantly seeing death won't have a negative effect on your body. To release the seal, just channel your chakra in your eyes. So how do I channel this chakra thing into my eyes? I asked innocently. The response I got wasn't what I expected though. She facepalmed. You don't know a thing about chakra or fighting or anything, do you? She said, her face still hidden in the palm of her hand. Why did you think I asked you if you can make me stronger in the first place? I snapped back. She sighed before speaking. Okay, I will agree to train and even to lend you my power when you need to, under one condition. She paused as I nodded at, motioning for her to continue. That you will help me fulfill my wish. Sure, I'll help you out, I said while putting up the best smile I could. She willingly comforted me earlier and now promised to train me. Helping her fulfill one wish is the least I could do to repay her. So what's your wish? I added. I'll tell you sometime in the future, young one, she said while she placed her hand atop my head and began rubbing over it. Nei-san, I just wanted to ask, what's your name? I asked, a bit curious as I didn't really know what to call her. The Kyuubi just looked at me and smiled. You can call me Eiko. Dodge. Eiko suddenly yelled out to her vessel. Naruto immediately bolted out of his bed, unsealing Tanto already drawn and eyes already activated. What the hell, Nei? I already told you to stop waking me up like that, said the blonde in obvious frustration. Sorry, I can't help it, it's just so funny seeing you act like that, replied the Biju between her chuckles. Naruto just growled in response as he deactivated his eyes and sheathed his Tanto. Oh come on, I was just joking, don't be a spoiled sport, Naru-kun, said the voice inside the blonde's head. Yeah, I'm used to it, Nei, the blonde said as he rolled his eyes and made his way to the washroom to take a cold shower. Since his landlord didn't want to waste warm water on a monster, he had to make do with taking cold ones. It has been 6 years since that fateful day that he met with Eiko, and he was proud to say that his life was never better. After waking up from his mindscape and leaving the hospital, Eiko immediately began teaching Naruto how to survive in Konoha. Since the shops either kicked him out or coerced Naruto to buy crappy stuff for triple the price, Eiko taught Naruto the ancient art of borrowing. Yes, from that day on Naruto started to borrow a lot of stuff without getting caught. He borrowed food, some clothes, some basic weaponry like kunais and shurikens. He borrowed some basic ninjutsu, taijutsu, and fuinjutsu books from the library. Heck, he even managed to sneak into the cage tower one night without getting caught and borrowed some techniques from the Forbidden Scroll, and suffice to say he had a hell of a good time. His Eiko Nei also taught him how to use chakra and various chakra control exercises like the leaf balancing, tree walking, and water walking, all of which Naruto has already mastered these past 6 years. The favorite part of his training, however, was when his Nei-san taught him how to use fuinjutsu, which he learned like a sponge. Eiko told him it was because of the Uzumaki blood that was running through his veins that made learning it. He was also taught the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu at one point by Eiko, and it was even his favorite jutsu well until he used them for training. The memory feedback of the Kage Bunshin and strain of his Magen caused an overloaded his brain, putting him in a coma for an entire day. Yet the experience still brought shivers up his spine. To date, he refrained from using the Kenjutsu. He also learned a few more things like his nature affinities, which were wind and fire, as well as how to use a few Futon and Kaiden jutsu. Naruto even managed to learn a jutsu from observing that one guy who was always smoking. It was called Hien or something. Naruto stepped out of the shower and grabbed a towel to dry himself. He couldn't help but look at himself in the mirror. The small skinny kid that always got beaten up years ago was long. In front of him he saw the reflection of a young man standing 5 feet tall. He was well built for his age, flat stomach, six-packs abs, well-toned arms and legs. Overall he had one of those athletic builds which he got from rigorous training that would make one Maida guy proud. Yep, a 1000 one-handed vertical hand-ups with 2 gigantic rocks strapped around his legs with each hand, 100 laps around Konoha with gravity weights on while being chased by an angry mob, climbing the Hokage monument with one hand. Frigging Eiko is one hell of a slave driver. Overall he had the perfect body for a ninja. As he looked on in the mirror his hand couldn't help but traced along an old scar around his chest. It was a simple stab wound to his heart, but for some reason the scar didn't fade even with Eiko's help. Shrugging it off, the blonde began drying himself up. After drying himself up, the Uzumaki went out of the washroom back to his room. Having learned long ago not to keep anything valuable in this place since people broke into his house at least 4 times a week, Naruto pulled out a scroll that was hidden underneath his bed and channeled chakra into one of the seals written within it. With a poof of smoke, a new set of clothes appeared along with some jerky that he made a few weeks back. Naruto sat on his bed as he began putting on some clothes while eating some of jerky. A few minutes passed before Naruto stood up, now fully dressed. He was wearing dark blue shinobi shoes, coupled by black jonin pants and a long-sleeve black shirt topped by a dark blue coat left open with red lining along the sleeves, collar, and the middle. The coat's sleeves slightly shorter than his black shirt, and it also had the symbol of Uzumaki clan emblazoned in its back. Naruto pulled back his left sleeve for a moment, revealing various seals drawn along his left arm. "There we go," Naruto said as he grabbed his tanto and sealed it in one of the seals in his forearm. 10. Looking good, Naru-kun, Eiko said, earning a smile from the blonde. "Liking what you seeing, eh, nay?" the blonde asked teasingly. "Ha ha ha, you're 100 years too young to try and flirt with me, Gaki," the Biju said while laughing, making the blonde roll his eyes for the second time in the day. The blonde looked at a calendar located near his bed and smiled. It was his last day in the academy, one more day closer to him leaving this stupid village. With that, the blonde left his apartment, locking it on his way out as he started walking towards the academy. Academy. Well, hooray for this being the last day of this glorious experience they call school, said the blonde with a deadpan expression, making him Tenet giggle cutely as he opened the door and entered his classroom. "Well, just wake me up after you leave this hellhole. Remember, we have a small taijutsu training session this evening, so till then, Yane," the Kyuubi said before cutting of the link between the two of them. Everyone in the room went silent the moment he entered the room. The guys found creepy because of his cold and quiet demeanor that scares the hell out them. Add to the fact when a few of the guys Kiba tried to mess or bully him, he pummeled them to a bloody pulp. While some of girls Hinata found him dreamy as he evoked an aura of both coolness with just a hint of mysteriousness that made them go gaga over him. The blonde made his way up the stairs as he chose a seat at the far back corner of room right beside a window. He sat down, placed his right arm on his desk while he rested his chin on his left as he looked out the window, earning a squealing from his fangirls. Yes, sadly he had those. Ignoring the sounds coming from the fangirls, Naruto began spacing out, enjoying the view. "Yo, Naruto," said a voice coming from beside the blonde. "Ohayo, Shikamaru," the blonde replied without even looking back at the pineapple hair-styled boy who sat down beside him. "Hey, do you want to play shogi later?" Shikamaru asked as he rested his arms on his head, yawning as he was getting ready to take a nap. "Sorry, Shikamaru-san. I already have an appointment this afternoon," replied the blonde, a bit disappointed on missing out an opportunity to face up against the best shogi player he knows. "Too bad then," the Nara said as he started what the Nara did best, he started sleeping. The blonde just kept staring out the window, passing the time in peace as he patiently waited for the exam to start. Soon enough, a tick mark formed on the blonde's head as the peace was broken by the sounds of two girls shouting, "Get away from Sasuke Ino, Buddha, Sasuke-kun is mine." screeched what Naruto could only describe as a pink-haired monkey. "No, you back off, you forehead, Baka Sasuke is mine," screeched another blonde albeit less irritating monkey. "Stupid fangirls," Naruto thought as he observed Haruno Sakura and Yamanaka Ino ranked number 2 and number 3 on his list of the most annoying people he has ever met. The two of them are only topped by one and only one person, and it was the guy who they were fighting for, the last Uchiha Sasuke. Well, he claims he is the last Uchiha, but Naruto knew that there was another out there, one of the only few people the boy actually liked, the weasel-masked Anbu Uchiha Itachi. Back to Sasuke, the guy was a total prick. He had this air of superiority around him and hates it when someone is better than him. Ask the last student who beat him in a taijutsu match. Oh wait, you can't, cause the kid got kicked out after some lame-ass charges of attempting to kill the prick. Frigging civilian council bending down on the he wishes. Naruto could only sigh as he got tired of watching the smirking Uchiha as the two elite chuckle Kunoichi fight over him. The blonde let his eyes wander, observing the various people in the room. The first person that Naruto spotted was Aburame Shino, who was sitting in the corner opposite his. Shino is a calm and collected fellow who is rather solitary. He has bushy brown hair and is wearing a sea green jacket with a high upturned collar with dark sunglasses over eyes. Naruto watched as Shino was listening to the mutt, who was wearing a hooded fur-lined coat with a dog over his head. Kiba Inazuki, the mutt who half the time looks like he's in heat and was about to rape someone. That already put the mutt high up on his list of irritating people, but whoop the fucking do. For some reason the mutt hated the hell out of Naruto. Might be because he kicked the mutt's ass a few no who am I kidding a lot of times over the years. Naruto lets his eye wander some more until he spotted another notable figure, a big-boned kid who was wearing for simplicity's sake underwear-looking hat over his head while munching on potato chips. Akamichi Choji. Shifting his attention, he looked at the two girls who were talking near Choji, Hyuga Hinata and Kurama Yakumo. Hinata has dark blue hair and short leveled hime-cut hairstyle just above her forehead. She was shy and timid girl who was wearing a cream-colored hooded jacket with fur around the cuffs and hem. Naruto sighed, based on his observation of her blushing every time he was near, had a crush on him. He doesn't really dislike her, yet he didn't really like her as well. He was just indifferent to her like he was to everyone else, so he doesn't really know how to respond to her if she confesses to him. Well, he'll deal with it when the time comes. His gaze then moved on the Kurama clan heir. She has long brown hair left straight on one side, but braided on the other. She was wearing a pink kimono with a pink sash. Naruto let out a small wave at her, which Yakumo returned before she looked away and began talking to Hinata again. He had a bit of a complicated relationship with the girl, as she was one of the few people who Naruto actually befriended, but recently he found that she was distancing herself from him. Naruto let out a sigh, as Shikamaru would say Mendokusai, thought the blonde. He wasn't really that close to anyone in his peer group, they were more of acquaintances than friends or allies. The only exception to it was Shikamaru and Yakumo, who Naruto viewed as something like friends or at least close acquaintances. Naruto turned his attention to the door as it opened just in time to see Iruka, their class Chunin instructor, and his assistant Mizuki as they entered the room. "It's time for the graduation exam, is everyone ready?" the scarred Chunin asked. After getting a collected yes or nods from the students. "Good," the Chunin said as he and his assistant began handing out the test to everyone in class. The assistant instructor handed Naruto his test before moving along and handing other students their tests. Naruto looked at his test paper and sighed. That idiot-ass Mizuki was trying to screw him over by casting a weak genjutsu on the paper. "You may begin," Iruka stated as Naruto activated his eyes for a second and poked a point in the illusion with his pencil, effectively dispelling it. Naruto gritted his teeth as he got a small headache, before glaring at Mizuki. "Bastard," Naruto thought as he just shook his head and started answering the test. 1 hour later, Naruto just stared as the Chunins began collecting everyone's exams. The test wasn't difficult, heck, he was pretty easy, he even finished it after 15 minutes. That takes care of the written part of the exam. Now for the second part of the exam, you are to go to the next room when your name is called to do henge, kawarimi, and bunshin no jutsu," Iruka said as he began calling out names for the test. "Uzumaki Naruto," Mizuki called out as the blonde stood up from his seat and went to the other room. "You may start," Iruka said, sitting beside Iruka, chart in hand ready to grade the blown. Henge no Jutsu, Naruto said as he transformed to an exact replica of Uchiha Itachi, shocking the hell out of the two Chunin. Kawarimi no Jutsu, the blonde said as he was suddenly replaced by an empty chair. Itaachhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhh. Dropping his henge. Bunshin no Jutsu, the blonde finally said as he saw the two instructors looking towards the source of the scream. The two Chunins eventually snapped from their daze as they saw the two clones the blonde created before dispelling them just around the same time the last Uchiha entered the room. "Has anyone seen Itachi here?" Sasuke asked as he was looking around. "Nope," was the reply of the Uzumaki as he saw Sasuke running out of the room screaming, "Itachi," like a madman. "Can I go now?" Naruto asked as Iruka only nodded in response. The blonde walked back to the previous room, ignoring all the talking and panicking about an S-rank nin appearing as he sat down on his seat. Naruto smiled as he was really lucky that the two were distracted by the prick, or else they would have noticed that he used Kage Bunshin no Jutsu instead of the regular Bunshin. Naruto closed his eyes as he waited for the second part of the exams to finish. 30 minutes later, outside the academy sparring and target practice area. Now on to the last part of these exams, a kunai and shuriken test, marksmanship test, followed by a 5-minute sparring match against either me or Mizuki. Iruka said as again he began explaining the test. Everyone must use the 5 shurikens and 5 kunais given to them to hit all the targets. Iruka said, grabbing a kunai and tossing it into one of the training dummies used for target practices. You will get 1 point for hitting the dummy, 2 points if you hit area, and 3 points if you hit the target in the heart. Iruka finished as he began calling out names. Naruto leaned on a wall far away from the group as he waited for his name to be called as he observed everyone else's turn the target practice test. Shino scored 12 out of 15 with the shuriken and 10 out of 15 with the kunai. Choji scored 9 out of 15 with the shuriken and 10 out of 15 with the kunai. Shikamaru scored 9 out of 15 with the shuriken and the same with kunai. Ino scored 8 out of 15 with the shuriken and 9 out of 15 with the kunai. Sakura scored 11 out of 15 with the shuriken and 10 out of 15 with the kunai. Sasuke scored 14 out of 15 with the shuriken and 13 out of 15 with the kunai. Kiba scored 10 out of 15 with the shuriken and 9 out of 15 with the kunai. Hinata scored 11 out of 15 with the shuriken and 11 out of 15 with the kunai. Yakumo scored 12 out of 15 with the shuriken and 8 out of 15 with the kunai. "Uzumaki, it's your turn," said Mizuki as he handed Naruto the shurikens and the kunais. Naruto just shook his head as he had noticed that the weapon's points were blunted. "Need to try better than that, Teme, if you want me to fail," Naruto thought as he channeled wind chakra to a kunai and threw it at the target, hitting it in the heart. "1," he said as he began channeling some more wind chakra to the 4 other kunai. 2, 3, 4, 5, the blonde said as each and every one of the kunai hit the target's heart, eventually making a gaping hole in it to the shock of everyone there. Moving to another target, Naruto again charged all 5 shurikens with wind chakra as he threw all off them in different angles, but to the surprise of everyone there, as all shurikens hit the target right in its heart. "Perfect score for both kunai and shuriken, good job Naruto," Iruka said, proudly impressed at the skills that the Uzumaki showed. "He cheated. I demand his results to be nulled," said the Uchiha, clearly pissed that someone did better than him, only to be ignored by Iruka, who rolled his eyes. "Meh," was Naruto's only response before he was bombarded by the pink and blonde monkeys. "Naruto baka, you cheated, how the hell could you get a perfect, you're not even," was all Naruto heard as he began ignoring her and started walking away. "Don't ignore me Naruto baka," Sakura said as she pulled her fist back and threw a cheap shot aimed at the retreating blonde, only for it to not hit as the blonde sidestepped. Kruin NCCCCCCCHHHHH. A loud sound was heard around the entire area as Sakura found herself face down on the ground with a few ribs and her arm broken. Iruka's eyes widened as he saw what exactly happened. Before Sakura's fist hit him, Naruto ducked down, then turned around and with a knife hand attacked her extended arm, breaking it before using the same hand lashed out to her sides, breaking her ribs. Mizuki immediately placed a hand on the blonde Uzumaki's shoulder. "You monster. Come with me, you need to be puny," was all he said as the blonde cut him off. "That was an act of self-defense, Mizuki-sensei. She attacked me with my back turned on her, or are you telling me that shinobis should allow their opponents to get behind them and do nothing if they attack?" Mizuki let Naruto go. He didn't do anything wrong. He just defended himself. It was Sakura's fault for attacking him, Haruka said as he picked up the fallen Sakura. "We will now be having a 5-minute break. After I come back the test will resume," he announced as he vanished using Shunshin. "So are you going to let go of me or not, Mizuki-sensei?" said the Jinchuriki in a cold tone, sending shivers to Mizuki's spine. "Good," Naruto said outright as he felt the Chunin let go and back away. Naruto walked back to his spot as he ignored the glaring eyes of a certain Uchiha. "You don't deserve that power," the prick muttered while clenching his fists as he saw the blonde ignore him and walk away. Leaning against the wall, Naruto watched Iruka reappeared and restarted the test. Naruto closed his eyes in boredom as he tried his best to wait. "Don't you think you went overboard there?" the blonde heard from a familiar voice. "Nah, I was holding black," the blonde replied and looked at his side as he saw Yakumo leaning on the wall beside him. "You call that holding back?" she asked, only to get a chuckle in return. "If I didn't it would have killed her," he replied to her, only to see her roll her eyes. "Do a better job holding back next time," she said, reprimanding the blonde as she pushed herself away from the wall and began walking back to the crowd. Naruto just looked at her with a small smile on his face. "Yeah. I'll try to." "Naruto, it's your turn," Iruka called out. Nodding, the blonde began to approach the sparring ring. "I choose Mizuki as a sparring partner, Iruka-sensei," said Naruto in an eerily calm tone. Mizuki went inside the ring, desperately trying to hide his smirk. Time put the demon in his place. Mizuki thought as he got into a basic Chunin stance while the demon Brag got into a stance, left foot 1 step forward, right foot 1 step back, while his right hand was extended forward away from his boy while his left hand was hanging around relaxed. "Hajime," Iruka said, signaling the start of the match. Mizuki moved forward as he threw a punch at Naruto, failing to notice the smirk on the blonde's face. Naruto simply lashed out his extended hand and chopped Mizuki's arm away, fracturing it, and with one quick maneuver thrust his free hand forward, hitting the Chunin in the sternum, knocking him out. Iruka just sighed as he palmed his face. "Well, I've always known Naruto and Mizuki didn't get along, but damn, Mizuki got his ass handed to him." He let out a chuckle. "Winner Uzumaki Naruto," said Iruka as he picked out the now injured Mizuki and used Shunshin for the second time that day to the hospital to drop someone off. "I demand you to teach me how to do that," the Uchiha said after witnessing Naruto's quick work on the Chunin. "You did say something?" Naruto lazily replied. Meanwhile, in front of the memorial stone, a silver-haired Jonin suddenly felt proud for some reason. "I said teach it to me," the Uchiha demanded. "Don't want to," Naruto said, ignoring the Uchiha again for God knows how many time already this day. "Hey, come back here, I demand you to." The Uchiha tried to begin his new demand but was cut off when Iruka appeared again with another Chunin replacing Mizuki. Naruto leaned back to the wall once more as Iruka started calling out names once more. An hour after the last student sparred with the Chunin, Iruka began telling out the scores, with the Rookie of the Year being Naruto with a 100% perfect score, followed by one Uchiha Sasuke with 94%. For the Kunoichi's Yakumo was first with a score of 91%, followed by Hinata with 88%. Congratulations to all of you who passed. Report to this room tomorrow at 9 a.m. to meet up with your Jonin instructor. That is all, you read dismissed for the day, and good luck with your ninja careers," Iruka said proudly as he disappeared in Whirl of Leaves. With his new leaf headband tied around his waist, Naruto vanished using a Shunshin before any of his fangirls can ask him out for a date or a certain Uchiha demand him to do God know what for the prick. Hokage's office. The Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen frowned as he saw what Naruto did to Mizuki and Sakura using his crystal ball. The boy really had changed after the accident a few years ago. The once happy-go-lucky kid became silent and distant. He didn't talk to anyone unless they started the conversation first. Hell, the kid didn't even call him Gigi anymore. He realized that his plan blew up in his face. His plan was to let the mobs of civilians to beat Naruto up from time to time, nothing life-threatening, and basically convince the kid to aim to become Hokage to gain the love and acknowledgement of the villagers so they won't hurt him anymore. That worked out really well, at least it did, until some retard went and stabbed a sword through the kid's chest. Yep, it all went downhill from there. Although it could be worse, from what his sources told him, the Kage's son turned batshit insane after receiving the same treatment as the Naruto. However, he couldn't help but smile even a little as he saw the Naruto grow stronger, even managing to decimate Mizuki. He's just like Minato, a prodigy without equal. Even though Naruto was now a bit colder and distant, the old Kage still believed that deep down inside the blonde will still protect Konoha and will eventually lead it to greater heights. Oh, how wrong he was. Back to Naruto. Naruto reappeared in front one of his few places in Konoha that actually served him food, a ramen stand called Ichiraku. Naruto sat down at one of the free chairs in Ichiraku, sitting beside an old man. "One miso ramen," the blonde ordered as Tucci, the owner, smiled and began preparing his order. "Coming up," the ramen chef replied. "The ramen sold in this place is really good. Wouldn't you agree, Yuan?" said the old man who sat beside Naruto. "Yeah, it's the best," the blonde said as he looked at the old man with gray hair and beard and along with strange red eyes. The old man just smiled. "I've been traveling for a long time now and I have been to many places, but I have to say that Ichiraku serves the best ramen I have ever tasted," the old man said, chuckling near the end. "Here is your miso ramen," Tucci said as he placed down Naruto's order in front of him. Naruto began eating in quick pace, finishing the bowl within seconds. "Another one," said Naruto, making the old man beside him laugh even louder. Getting a tick mark on his head, Naruto turned his head only to notice the old man standing up and grabbing a cane that was leaning on the side of the stand. "Nice talking to you, young one, and good luck in facing what lies ahead," the old man said as he paid for his ramen and left the stand. Naruto stared at the man who began exiting. He didn't know why, but he felt that there was something weird about the old man. Well, he did stare until he heard Tucci put down another bowl of ramen in front of him. Shrugging, Naruto started eating again. "No matter which world you belong to, you always prove to be very interesting, Uzumaki Naruto," the old man said from a distance before he vanished, enveloped by a strange light. 25 bowls of ramen later. "Man, that hit the spot," Naruto said happily as he took out his wallet and paid for the meal. As he made his way out of the stand, he saw Mizuki enter wearing cast over his arm. "Hey Naruto, just who I was looking for." "What do you want, Mizuki?" Naruto said, his happy mood already gone. "What if I told you there was a way for you to get promoted into a chunin?" Mizuki answered. "Sorry, I'm not interested, Mizuki," Naruto said coldly as he left the ramen stand, leaving behind a pissed Mizuki as he headed to his apartment complex. The first thing Naruto did as he arrived in front of his apartment is to check for traps that the villagers might have placed to kill him. Seeing as there were no traps and no one broke in, Naruto opened the door and entered his apartment. Naruto quickly locked the door to prevent anyone from entering as he got on his bed and sat down in a lotus sitting position. The blonde closed his eyes and concentrated, diving into his mindscape. Naruto found himself standing in the middle of an open field in the same landscape he saw 6 years ago. There wasn't any major changes on it. The beautiful night sky was still the same, the hill was still grassy, and the wind was still blowing in a steady pace. "Took you long enough," Eiko said as she noticed Naruto. "Sorry about that, got a bit sidetracked," the blonde replied as he looked at Eiko, who was wearing a kimono. Still as beautiful as ever, the redhead was sitting down a few feet away from Naruto in the lotus sitting position. "How was your day?" the blonde asked as he began stretching around and warming up. "Nothing special, just meditated the whole day," Eiko replied casually as she slowly stood up. "Play Libera Me from Hell. So taijutsu only for today?" the blonde asked as he finished warming up. "Yes, just taijutsu for today, Naru-kun," Eiko said as she changed into her battle attire. Naruto nodded as he got into one of the stances of Nanaya Ken, the style he has been trying to master for the past 5 years. Nanaya Ken. Shiryo. The Nanaya Ken fighting style is used and taught by the Nanaya clan, who are known throughout the elemental nations as a clan who exterminates demon. He found out about the style from one of the books he borrowed from the library, and with the help of Eiko began learning it. Ironic, isn't it? A demon learning a demon slaying fighting style. The style itself consists mostly of thrusts, pokes, slashes from knife hands and elbows aimed for various vital areas in the body. This style is heavily reliant on speed, reflex, and flexibility as opposed to strength, as its aim is to incapacitate opponents by hitting their weakest areas. "Show me how good your Nanaya Ken is, Naru-kun," said Eiko as she ran towards him and jumped the last second. "Dynamiku Entori," she shouted as she attempted to kick Naruto, who quickly backstepped, evading the jump kick, which created a crater on the ground. Naruto immediately pumped chakra to his legs and darted forward, arms positioned freely at his sides. "Nanaya Ken. Seisho no Kai," Naruto said as he came into an abrupt halt right in front of Eiko, and using the momentum of the sudden stop swung both his arms forward, hitting Eiko in the chest in an X-like pattern. Pulling back one of his arms, Naruto immediately followed up, "Nanaya Ken. Psycho no Ya," he said as he thrust his arm forward, aiming for her chest, and to his surprise it pierced right through her. "WTF. He thought as she suddenly began to glow. "Shit. He thought as he quickly used Kawarimi, evading the exploding clone. "The hell, I thought it was taijutsu only," complained the blonde as he backflipped, evading two arms popping out of the ground to grab him. The moment Naruto landed, he ducked down, narrowly avoiding a fist to the head, and spun around as he blocked her follow-up attack with one arm and thrusted his other arm forward, targeting her in the stomach, only for the redhead to grab his hand with both of hers. "You're a ninja, Naru-kun, you need to expect the unexpected," Eiko replied as she began putting pressure on my arm. "Nanaya Ken. Maya," Naruto shouted as he thrust his free arm forward, aimed for her neck, only for Eiko to let go one of her hands holding Naruto and use it to grab the forearm of his attacking hand. Impressive speed. That attack would have incapacitated a high chunin to a low jonin opponent, but really, Naru-kun, you need to be faster," said the red-haired beauty as putting more pressure on both of the blonde's arms. Naruto just smirked as he held on both of her arms and tightly gripped them before jumping with both legs curled towards his chest before pushing them downwards towards Eiko, releasing a devastating kick aimed for her chest. "Nanaya Ken. Yari," the blonde said as he hit the kyubi on her chest, forcing her to let go. Using the momentum of the kick, Naruto backflipped in the air and landed right in front of the staggering Biju. "Nanaya Ken. Seisho no Kai," Naruto said as he attacked Eiko with the X-pattern chop. The Biju only had enough time to take one step back, narrowly evading the attack, damaging nothing but her shirt that now had an X-shaped gash on it. The Biju smiled as she evaded the blonde's follow-up thrust and slashes. "You need to try harder, Naru-kun," she said, taunting the blonde. In response to her taunt, Naruto just backed away and returned to the Shuryu stance, one hand extended forward while the other hand stayed relaxed in his side. Eiko smirked as she focused pumped chakra into her fist. "Try to survive this one, Naru-kun," she said as she threw a punch whose strength would even give Tsunade a run for her money. Seeing what she was going to do, Naruto immediately began channeling Fuuten chakra along both of his hands. "Nanaya Ken. Fuuten Seisho no Kai," the blonde screamed out as he met her attack head-on with his wind-enhanced cross-chop. The two strong attacks created cracks along the ground as they cancelled out each other, pushing both Eiko and Naruto a few feet away from each other. Giving no chance for the blonde to rest, Eiko in a burst of speed ran towards the blonde and immediately sent a few jabs at him. Naruto took a few steps back. He blocked and evaded each of her punches, patiently waiting for an opening to present itself. Naruto's eye widened as he saw Eiko back away and performed a familiar hand seal. "Kage Bunshin no Jutsu," the Biju said smugly as she created 4 clones who along with her charged at her vessel. "Frigging Kage Bunshins," Naruto stated as Naruto blocked a kick coming from his left side, evaded a sweep to his legs, parried a punch coming from his front, blocked a palm strike coming from his right, and finally avoid a cheap shot coming from behind him. "Nanaya Ken. Zanshu," Naruto said as he caught one clone with a swift knife hand to the neck, decapitating it. "Nanaya Ken. Psycho no Ya," the blonde shouted out as he countered a clone who overextended its attack, stabbing through its stomach. 2 down, 3 to go, Naruto thought as he began waiting for an opportunity to counterattack again. There, Naruto though, as he let out another knife hand thrust to a clone who tried attacking him in his flank, effectively dispelling it. Naruto then immediately spun around just in time to evade an axe kick aimed for his outstretched arm. Using the momentum of the spin, Naruto unleashed another Zanshu, decapitating the clone. Naruto wasn't even given a chance to catch his breath as Eiko began attacking him with a flurry of kicks. She couldn't help but think about Blonde's performance. The boy has improved drastically over the years. Gone was the weak and defenseless boy from long ago. The man standing in front of her now was a killer. The Nanaya Ken is really a fearsome style, and it'll be only a matter of time until Naru-kun fully masters it, the Biju thought before quickly snapping out of her thoughts. The Kyuubi blocked 2 oncoming counter-attacks before sending a powerful low kick at the blonde, tripping him for a moment. Shit, Naruto thought as he was now off balance. He barely had the time to put both his arms up around his chest as a kick connected to it and sent him flying backwards. Eiko smirked as her kick hit. No matter how she liked the Naruto's newfound strength, there was still no way in hell that she was going to let him defeat her. Following through, the redhead disappeared in a blur of red, reappearing midair behind the blonde leg already drawn up. She released an axe kick, hitting Naruto in the chest and sending him crashing into the ground, creating a 6 feet deep crater under it. However, Eiko didn't stop there, as she followed up by exhaling a fox-shaped fireball, sending it to the hurling down towards the blonde. Fuck, Naruto said as he couldn't find anything to substitute with, as it was his only option left. Naruto quickly made a seal-less cage bunshin in the distance and used Kawarimi on it just in time to evade the flaming fox. Sorry Naru-kun, you lose again, said a voice coming from behind Naruto. The blonde's eye widened. She wouldn't, he thought as he looked back to only to see the mischievous smile of the Kyuubi's face. Nanaya Ken Dai Ugi. Kobatsu. Eiko screamed out as she used a chakra-enhanced knife hand and thrust it forward, hitting Naruto up where the sun doesn't shine. Naruto cried as he was sent flying into the air. Uik, he continued before eventually plummeting to the ground face first and creating a huge gash on the landscape. The last thing Naruto saw before losing consciousness was a laughing red head. Nah, I said, wah, p, Naruto heard a voice say as he was still barely conscious. I said, wake, the voice said as Naruto felt a spiking pain coming from his cheeks. The blonde opened his eyes only to see a worried-looking Eiko who was about to slap him again, trying to wake him up. Luckily for the blonde, Eiko noticed him waking up and barely stopped another slap from hitting his now bruised-up face. How long was I out, nay? The blonde asked, still a bit groggy. Around 3 hours. I spent about an hour laughing, an hour actually looking for you, and another hour slapping you. Stupid Gaki, making me worried, she said, whispering the last part. You did well today, Gaki. Your Nanaya Ken is now at low to mid-Jonin level. You'll need to find an actual Nanaya and have them teach you if you want to further improve. Eiko said as she was smiling the now fully recovered blonde. Also, congratulations on becoming Genin Naru-tan, the Kyuubi remarked cutely, earning a blush from her vessel. Well, thank you, but you know I don't really care about that. It's just that being a Genin would give me more opportunities to actually leave this dump, Naruto said while scratching the back of his head. You're getting stronger. Soon enough you might even increase your chances of beating me from 0% to 0.000000000000001%, said Eiko as she just loved to tease the blonde. I'll beat you one day. Dat Bayo, the blonde said before realizing what and immediately covering his mouth. A little too late as the red-haired beauty was already laughing. Oh god, you still have that ridiculous verbal tick? I thought you already got rid of it ages ago, said the redhead in between her chuckles. Shut up, the blonde grumbled as he began to pout. Sorry, it was just too funny, Naruto, Eiko said as she finally stopped laughing. I'm really grateful for everything that you've done for me, the blonde said seriously. I know, Naru-kun, the redhead said with a warm smile as she hugged the young blonde. No matter what you decide to do, Naru-kun, I'll always be by your side. She added, thanks Eiko-san, thank you for everything. If it wasn't for you I wouldn't know how I would have turned out. For all I know I could have become an obnoxious brat who wore orange and screamed out I'm going to be Hokage, believe it. The blonde replied in a mock tone. Peefed. You said it again, the redhead chuckled as she began snuggling the Uzumaki. Naruto smiled for a bit, from the bottom of my heart. Arigato Eiko-san. The blonde said with all seriousness as hugged back. Naruto stayed in his mindscape for a few hours under the bright twinkling night sky, enveloped by with a slightly cold breeze blowing now and then. They too enjoyed each other's company as the two talked about the past, the present, and their future. Naruto let out a yawn as tiredness finally hit him. Oyasumi nasai A-chan. Oyasumi nasai Naru-kun. You have a long day tomorrow, replied Eiko as Naruto nodded back and eventually vanished from his mindscape. Eiko was already lying down on the grassy ground the moment the blonde left. She looked up closely, looking at the starry sky and enjoying its beauty. Hurry up and get stronger, Naru-kun. You're going to need it, the redhead said before closing her eyes and falling asleep.